William for the win. Yes! Ball game over, streak over, season over.
After 4 consecutive national championships, last season ended with one solitary loss. A loss that shocked the basketball world and planted the seed for redemption.
It's a motivation, and just like how everyone was excited to see us lose, that was a motivation for us, and now we're excited to prove to everybody again that we can do it.
The 2017-2018 season began for the Huskies in Columbus with a rout over Stanford. And if the only undefeated team in the nation has its way, they'll return on March 30th to finish the job that last year's team could not.
You have to not hold on to stuff like that too long because it'll weigh you down. If we could put ourselves in that position again, I like our chances.
March is officially upon us, and we're breaking down the brackets as UConn looks to take home its 12th national championship. It's the UConn Women's Basketball Tournament Preview Show, and it begins now. To the UConn Women's Basketball Tournament Preview Show presented by Connecticut Lighting Centers. I am Michelle Yu alongside Carol Walters. So the road to Columbus begins for the Huskies Saturday morning against St. Francis. But last year's loss to Mississippi State still weighing heavily on the minds of UConn fans. And with that being said, how big of a motivating factor is this for the Huskies?
I think it is the motivating factor, and they won't tell you that, but I'm going to tell you as a former player, that is the motivating factor. Mississippi State got an ESPY for the biggest upset, okay? Gino Auriemma and Chris Daly have newspaper articles posted in their lockers. This UConn team was upset at the selection show how many times they showed the shot against Mississippi State. So if you think this isn't a motivating factor, you're sadly mistaken. This is redemption, and they are considered the underdog because they're not the returning champ. How many times do we see that, Michelle? So this is definitely the motivating factor.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because Katie Lou Samuelson said that this team is beatable. Do you feel that there's a vulnerability with this team?
They're mortal. They're human. They have been beat. And once that happens, other teams realize it can happen, and they realize that. And any given night, somebody has a great shot, a great game, it can happen. So they are not unbeatable, and teams know that now. They have confidence, and it's a different mindset for these teams coming into the tournament.
So why is it that this team will be equipped to recapture this title, you think?
Well, starting with the hungry part. Clearly, they're hungry. We'll start there. And they're, to me, the most talented team. They're not as deep, but from 1 to 6, you have versatility, you have interchangeability, you have things with this team. They're the most disciplined team in the country, I would say. The attention to detail and the discipline are what sets you apart come tournament time versus the regular season. And I think it's that discipline, clearly well coached. We see the work ethic. They're in great shape. These are all reasons why they're set up to succeed.
How do you think Gino is preparing this team? Because he likes to play some mind games with this team.
No, not him. Not him, the master puppeteer. Yeah, I think we're reading through it now. I feel like saying, Gino, we got the gig's up. We get you now. But it's hard. His job is hard as a coach to keep this team motivated as far as not come tournament time, but through a season where their conference isn't as good as it needs to be. So UConn plays against UConn every day in practice. That's where freshmen earn minutes. We've seen some problems with that. That's where he gets confidence in players to get their minutes. So it's coaching. He's a great coach for a reason, and he's had to manage this team with injuries. They're a short lineup. To me, that's the only thing that's going to hurt this team. Foul trouble and injuries could be their biggest problem.
It's tough love for Gino. All right, here is a look at the Albany region. The Huskies taking on St. Francis in round 1 with the winner of Miami and Quinnipiac. Looming in round 2, the defending national champion South Carolina, the 2 seed in UConn's bracket. And with more on the tournament, here's Justine Ward with the head coach, Gino Auriemma.
Gino, first, what is your initial reaction to the bracket?
After all these years, you just appreciate the fact that we're being rewarded for a great regular season. That's number one. So we're really happy with that. And then the other thing is, you look at every bracket, and I say this every year, but every coach says we got the toughest bracket. We got a tough number 2, we got a tough number 3, 4, 8, 9 game. But when you look at all the brackets, everyone's tough. Everyone's got a great matchup coming up. And you're going to have to beat a bunch of really, really good teams.
Do you think what this team accomplished during the regular season has prepared you enough for what's ahead in March?
Well, the only way you know that is you look back afterwards and you say, this is what we did and this is why we did, this is how we did it. But I thought we were pretty well prepared last year, and we came up a game short. But we certainly played all the best teams, and we certainly played a lot of different styles of play. So I would like to think that whatever pops up, we'll be prepared for.
Now that you know who's in your regional, what would you like to fine-tune between now and round one?
Well, again, because you don't know who's going to win which game, you really can't say, well, we have to get ready for this team, this team, this team, and that team. So we spent the last couple of days in practice just, hey, what are the things that we think were a little bit of a struggle for us? So let's see if we can't start to address them. We don't have everybody practicing, so that's a challenge. But right now, we just go to practice and try to keep our conditioning where it is, and then try to stay sharp.
So you just heard Gino talk in generalities about a few things the team wants to tighten up as the tournament approaches. The question is, what do the Huskies need to do better in the tournament that they didn't do in the regular season to capture the title?
That's kind of hard to say, right? Because they're pretty darn good. But I could sit here and say maybe their half-court offense, because they do so many things in transition. Maybe their offensive rebounding, their one-on-one D. God, I found 3 things that maybe they could wear. That's amazing. But what I'm going to say is handling adversity. We all saw what happened at the end of last year. This team, they're not put in these situations, and by no fault of their own, just some of the situations they've been in. Handling it mentally, end-of-game situations, handling adversity when the shots aren't falling, the refs aren't making calls. They need to be able to handle that, because that made a difference last year against Mississippi State. That was one of their things. They had never been in that situation. Teams like South Carolina, Don Staley said, we want to put them in unfamiliar situation, and that is keeping the game close. Because in close games, how are they going to react? They haven't had that experience this year. I mean, they had a few, but not really. So you want to keep it close. And I think that mental aspect is really the difference in this team.
Well, you talk about the mental toughness. Do you think that this season, the regular season, has prepared them well enough with that mental toughness?
I think Gino Auriemma has done everything he could possibly do to prepare this team. I mean, his strength of schedule out of conference is phenomenal. He couldn't have gotten any better. What more could he do? I mean, he can't really do much more. So he's prepared his team the best he can. Now let's see where the chips fall and see what happens.
Well, we know this team is hungry. That's all what it's about. All right, the Connecticut Lighting UConn Women's Basketball Tournament Preview Show continues in just a moment. UConn beat each of these teams in the regular season. Can any of them mount a postseason threat to the Huskies? Plus, where would UConn be if not for the leadership of their seniors? We'll hear from Katie Lou Samuelson on their impact in just a moment. Stay with us.
I love watching Gabby play. I enjoy watching her because of how many different things she's capable of doing. It is at both ends of the floor, absolutely right.
Nurse, the top 3-point shooter in the country, on target again today.
She's a great competitor, and I'm not surprised that she's scored 1,500 points. She just is that hard worker. That's how she's been since the day she walked on campus.
I think it's no coincidence that UConn's playing their best basketball when Gabby Williams is playing her best basketball.
When she graduates, we're going to certainly miss all the things that she does.
Seniors Gabby Williams and Kia Nurse have been key cogs in UConn's undefeated run this season. As we check out the numbers presented by Connecticut Lighting Centers, we caught up with Katie Lou Samuelson on Monday, and she shared her thoughts on their senior leadership.
I think it's been huge. I think, they had a big step up this year from years before, and I think they do things that not necessarily everyone even sees out there on the court, and like Kia making sure she locks down the best player, but Gabby as well doing it, and Gabby doing all the little things she does for us that kind of runs our whole offense. She's like a point guard that's not in the point guard position, because we all just rotate around her basically. And I think it's just really big for us that we feel comfortable with those two, and I feel confident that they're going to do what they need to do every single game.
Those girls certainly contribute to the Huskies very much so. Where would they be, though, if it weren't for this senior class?
I mean, they wouldn't be where they are. Honestly, they are such hard-working young ladies. They bought into the system early with Gino Auriemma. Kia Nurse would give you her kidney to guard the other player on the other team. I mean, she stops people, and that you can't teach that. You cannot teach that work ethic, the competitiveness. But even from the beginning, Gabby Williams, she came from high school. She was a guard. They turned her into a post player. She was willing to do whatever it took. Whatever Gino laid out that plan, she was going to do it. And they adapted. They were versatile. They were chameleons. Everything you can say about them. And they lead by example. They lead by example with being tough, going hard, diving for loose balls when they're up by 50 points. So things that aren't even on the stat sheet, I think this class in particular does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet that you couldn't do without.
But here's another dynamic for you. Azurá Stevens, she obviously has improved so much, and Crystal Dangerfield as well. There's a difference between last year's Azurá Stevens and Crystal Dangerfield to this year, no?
Yeah, I mean, Crystal Dangerfield, like you said, compared last year to this year, unbelievable difference. She has the confidence. She's taken over the ship. You know, she's just the leader, the extension of Gino Auriemma on the court, and just confidence. The thing is making sure she's healthy. And Azurá Stevens, I said coming into the season, she'd be a huge difference maker, and I think she's going to be huge, huge, huge for them to win a championship.
They could very well be X factors for sure in this tournament. All right, still to come, Mississippi State, Notre Dame, and Louisville are the other #1 seeds. But does UConn's greatest threat reside on a lower line? The answer when we return. The Huskies have not shied away from top-tier competition this season as we look at the numbers presented by Restoration Lighting Gallery. They've played 13 games against tournament teams this season, and the numbers speak for themselves. Here's our Eric Fried and Meg Como with more on the Huskies.
Can they do it? That is the big question. Can UConn win a 12th national championship? Let's start with getting to the title game, which was a problem a year ago, running into Mississippi State, as we all remember. Mississippi State is loaded. They're back. Baylor is very good. What would you say are the strengths for UConn as they get set to try to make a title run?
Well, number one, they have the best coach. I think Gino Auriemma is the best coach in the game. I think they have that going for them. I think they've got, the history of this program, and they wear that with pride. But they also have, I think they have the best team. I mean, day in and day out this season thus far, they've been spectacular. You know, they've got the guards, they've got the inside game, and with Azurá Stevens coming along at this point, that's huge because they haven't had much coming off their bench. If Megan Walker can continue to come along, I think that'll make a huge difference for them. But they play such great defense, and then they score the ball so well. I don't think there's another team that can do all of what they can do as well.
And when you take a look at the season in total for UConn, is the way they play on defense and quickly turning defense into offense the thing that has set this group apart from maybe other teams in the country and maybe past UConn teams?
Yeah, for sure, because there's no way that the opposition can ever simulate this defense in practice. You just can't, and you may think you're prepared coming in. Look what happened to Louisville when they played them. They were shell-shocked. Now, maybe that will obviously help Louisville down the road, but these guys are just so mentally tough and so focused, and a lot of that goes back to the way they're coached, that practices are so hard that by the time game comes around, you know, it's easy and it's fun. I think their defense is what sets them apart, and I think it's what's going to make the biggest difference.
And they were tested by a very tough non-conference schedule. Remember, they fell behind by 12 to Notre Dame, came back and won that game. They beat Louisville, as Meg mentioned. They have taken on some of the top teams in the country, not Baylor, not Mississippi State this season, and they've come out on top.
Yes, and they also have that loss to Mississippi State last year that is, you know, whether it's a chip, whether it's, you know, a fire in the belly, whatever you want to call it, they still have that in their memory banks, and they're going to use that as motivation going forward.
I don't know if they can fully go into underdog mode entering the
yeah,
NCAA
that might
tournament,
be a stretch.
But yeah, you can put that chip on the shoulder. We'll see what happens. It should be another fun March into April for the University of Connecticut.
Thank you. you guys, and here's a snapshot of the top 4 teams in each regional. South Carolina, the 2 seed with UConn and Albany. Mississippi State, the 1 in the Kansas City regional with Texas as the number 2. Some familiar faces in Spokane and Lexington as well. And with that in mind, as what we're seeing right now, who is the biggest threat to UConn's title run, Kara?
Well, I would say that South Carolina game is the number 2. I have to tell you, my senior year, Tennessee was number 2 in our bracket. And we were like, what? 2 of the best teams? And they beat us. They had 10 losses that season, went on to win the national championship. That is a really tough game to play. That game to go to the Final Four is like the most nerve-wracking game. And South Carolina, yes, they beat them by 25 points this year, UConn did, but they want revenge. Asia Wilson's last season, I think South Carolina, that game could be a very interesting game. And then I think Mississippi State, they have a great defense as well. 20 points off turnovers for Mississippi State. So that could be the battle of defenses, I think, against Mississippi State. So, and again, that mental part, Mississippi State knows they're capable of beating them. So in my opinion, that South Carolina game and this Mississippi State team that can score from the outside as well as the inside, they have great defensive pressure. Those could be the 2 games that I'm looking at.
So you're saying it's not a walk in the park for these Huskies?
I mean, for as good as they are, tournament time, everything, new slate, everything's wiped out, new chapter. It's not easy. There's a lot of nerves and mental, and all it takes is one bad day. All it takes is one injury, and that's all it takes.
That's why it's called March Madness. Yeah. Still more to come on the tournament preview show. 11 championship banners currently hanging the rafters in stores. Is number 12 on the way? Predictions are next. One of UConn's most decorated players, Sue Bird, was a 2-time national champion at UConn and a winner of both the AP and Naismith Player of the Year awards. I recently caught up with Sue in the latest edition of Athletic Appetites here on SNY, where she dished on a variety of topics. Here's a sneak peek. Hey, I'm Michelle Yu. In today's Athletic Appetites, I'm here at the famed Russian Tea Room, and I'm going to make some Russian cuisine with basketball superstar Sue Bird, who spent 10 years in Russia. So, Sue, you know a lot about Russian eats.
I do. It's delicious food, but one thing I also know, it takes a lot of prep. So something tells me we need to go.
We got to go to the kitchen. You've won so many Russian national championships. You've also won 4 gold medals. You've also won a couple of WNBA championships. When do you feel you're going to hang it up?
You know, as long as I enjoy it, and really more than anything, at 37, as long as my body can keep doing it, then I'm going to keep doing it.
We started with a little bit of bacon. Adds a little smokiness to the dish.
Bacon's the exception to all the rules. I have a friend who's a bacon-tarian.
Oh, really? Yeah, so am I.
Well, your coach, old coach, Gino Auriemma, he likes the culinary world as well. He does his own wine, and he has his own tomato sauce.
He'll give you wine, he'll give you sauce, that kind of stuff. So I've tried it all. It's good, it's good. The sauce, don't let him take credit. That's his mom's sauce.
How do you think your playing time at UConn has prepped you till this day?
I mean, it's pretty much the backbone, I think, of my career. Everything I've learned, both on and off the court, it's really what was established in those early years by them that has, again, helped set the stage for myself.
How would you sum up Gino Auriemma?
I mean, who can sum him up, you know? As a player, you kind of hate him, I'm not going to lie. If the players say they don't, they are lying.
And there's more to that. You can catch Athletic Appetites in its entirety on SNY.TV. And Kara's chuckling here as both Sue and Kara both know a fair share about the Final Four and playing for Gino Auriemma.
Yes.
Give me your predictions for the Final Four.
All right. Well, UConn, for sure. Mississippi State, for sure. Those 2 meeting in the finals, to me, is what's going to happen. But then, you know, Oregon, the Ducks have been playing great. They're young. They can score. They have 3-point shooters. They pick and roll. Louisville, I have a little bit of a second hesitating on this one with Baylor and Louisville. Louisville has Asia Durr. They're capable of high scoring. I think with Baylor, they're big. Louisville, they're quick. So I gave the nod to Louisville on that. So the Ducks have been playing great. They're young. Mississippi State, we know what they're capable. Louisville and UConn, and that is my Final Four.
Will there be a ticker-tape parade in stores?
I believe if we don't see, we have a lot of snow at home. If this snow goes away, I think my prediction is UConn wins it all.
We want to see you there as the ambassador, Kara. All right, we're not done yet on the tournament preview show. When we return, we'll hear from Gino on his most consistent player and what makes her so invaluable. Stay tuned. For more from the Hall of Fame coach Gino Auriemma, including the one thing he won't be doing during this year's NCAA tournament, just keep it where it is, because the Gino Auriemma Show airs immediately following us right here on SNY. And here's a sneak peek.
I think the player who's been the most consistent since the beginning of the season has probably been Lou. She hasn't had some of the dips that some of the other players have had. So I would say probably Lou.
Would you be surprised if she gets National Player of the Year? I know there's still a lot to be played
Would
here
I
in
be
March.
surprised?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be surprised because, you know, there's this perception out there where you have all the best players. So I think sometimes when kids come here, they have to almost understand that you might not get some things that you think you deserve. And the trade-off is, do you want to win an individual award or do you want to win a national championship? Or ideally, you'd like to do both. And a lot of times, that's what happens here. But sometimes it doesn't. And, you know, I think our players are pretty good with that.
What do you think? Do you think that she'll win?
She should win. I don't know if she will because of Asia Wilson and her being a senior, but Gino's absolutely right. People are almost like, oh, we don't want to give everything to them, but you go there to win national championships. Bottom line, they're going to do it this year, in my humble opinion.
Everything about UConn is the best, so that's what people always expect. All right, that does it for us on the Connecticut Lighting Center's UConn Women's Basketball Tournament Preview Show. For Kara Walters, I'm Michelle Yu. Thank you so much for joining us. The Gino Auriemma Show begins right now. Do not go anywhere.